She mistook a Mafia boss for the taxi passenger stepping out. But that mistake changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Let's dive into today's tale. It was a chilly autumn evening in New York City. The streets were busy, the air crisp, and the city's usual hum was more alive than ever. Emma Richards, a young woman in her mid-20s, stood at the curb of a busy intersection, scanning the yellow cabs that sped by. Her workday had been exhausting, and she was looking forward to getting home. As a waitress at a small diner, her days were long and her paycheck barely covered the rent, let alone anything else. She'd promised herself that one day, things would get better. As she waited, a sleek black taxi rolled up to the curb, its engine purring softly as it stopped in front of her. Without thinking, she opened the door and slid inside, not even paying attention to who was already sitting there. It was a cramped space, but she didn't mind. She just needed to get home. The man sitting across from her was dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his dark hair styled neatly, and his cold, intense eyes fixed on his phone. He didn't acknowledge her presence at first, and she didn't think much of it. She was too tired to care. But as she settled in, the man's phone buzzed, and he glanced up for the first time. For a split second, his gaze met hers, and something in his eyes made her freeze. But before she could think about it, she mumbled, "Hi, I'm Emma. You must be Kevin, right?" The man blinked at her, confused for a moment, before offering a faint smile. No," he said, his voice smooth but with an edge that she couldn't place. "But I'm Liam. Nice to meet you, Emma." She blinked, suddenly realizing her mistake, but her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were someone else." Liam's smile widened just a fraction. "No problem," he replied, though his voice had softened, as if amused by her mistake. For a moment, neither of them said anything, the tension thick in the air. Emma, still embarrassed, fidgeted with her phone, trying to think of something to say. "Well," she said after a beat, trying to lighten the mood. "Blind dates are always awkward, huh?" Liam chuckled softly, the sound rich and warm. "I guess they are," he said, leaning back in his seat. "But at least it's interesting. Most people just stare at their phones or sit in silence." Emma laughed nervously, relieved that he wasn't annoyed with her. She was still feeling the sting of the mistake, but at least he wasn't making it worse. The car continued its journey through the city, the lights of the skyscrapers flashing by in a blur. Emma couldn't help but steal glances at the man across from her. His composure was almost intimidating. She had never been around someone so polished, so controlled. Meanwhile, her worn shoes and second-hand dress felt like a stark contrast to his tailored suit. "So, what do you do, Liam?" she asked, trying to make conversation. "Tech stuff?" He raised an eyebrow, slightly amused by her guess. "Something like that," he said cryptically, offering no further explanation. Emma shrugged, not pressing him. It was clear he wasn't going to open up about himself. "I'm just a waitress," she said. "Not glamorous, but it pays the bills." Liam studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. "I'm sure it's not easy," he replied quietly, though there was an edge to his words, as if he truly understood the weight of her struggle. The cab slowed as it approached her building, and Emma realized she was almost home. "This is me," she said, fumbling for her wallet to pay. Liam offered to cover the fare, but she insisted on paying for herself. "I've got it," she said with a smile. "Thanks anyway." As she stepped out of the cab, she glanced back at him through the window. He was still sitting there, watching her with an unreadable expression. As the taxi pulled away, Emma couldn't help but feel like she had just met someone important, even if she hadn't realized it at the time. She had no idea who he really was or what was about to unfold. But something told her this mistake wasn't as insignificant as it seemed. The next few days passed quietly for Emma. She went back to her usual routine, working long shifts at the diner, grabbing coffee on her breaks, and counting down the hours until her shift would end. The encounter with Liam felt like a fleeting moment, something that happened by chance and would soon fade from her memory. After all, she had made a fool of herself, assuming he was someone else. She didn't expect to ever see him again, and frankly, she didn't think about it much. But life as it always seems to do, had other plans. A week later, she was walking to work, the morning sun shining through the cracks in the towering buildings around her. The city was as chaotic as ever, and she was in a hurry, trying to avoid being late for her shift. That was when she saw him again. Liam. This time, she didn't mistake him for anyone else. She was standing at the corner of Fifth Avenue, waiting for the light to change when she spotted him across the street, standing outside a high-end coffee shop. He was talking to a man, his back to her, but she knew it was him. The tailored suit, the sleek hair, everything about him screamed success. He turned, catching her eye. For a moment, there was a brief flicker of recognition in his gaze, then a small smile. Emma froze. She wasn't sure what to do. She felt embarrassed again, but this time, it was different. She wasn't as nervous as before. Maybe it was the fact that she had already made a fool of herself, so there was nothing more to lose. She waved awkwardly, and Liam's smile widened. He excused himself from the conversation he was having and walked toward her. "Hey, Emma," he said when he reached her, his voice warm, but with a hint of curiosity. "Funny seeing you here." "Yeah," Emma said, laughing nervously. "I guess I'm just always in the right place at the wrong time." He chuckled. "I guess so." There was an awkward pause before Emma spoke again. "I didn't think I'd see you again. After the whole taxi thing." Liam's smile softened. "I told you, no harm done. You weren't the first person to mistake me for someone else." He looked at her for a moment, his gaze a little more intense than before. "Are you busy? Want to grab a coffee?" Emma hesitated for a second, but the thought of spending a few minutes in his company didn't sound too bad. She nodded. "Sure. Why not?" They walked into the coffee shop, and as soon as they stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. The bustling street outside seemed miles away. The shop was cozy, with soft music playing in the background and the rich aroma of coffee filling the air. Liam led her to a small table by the window, and they sat down. As Emma took her seat, she couldn't help but notice how different everything felt. She wasn't just some girl working at a diner anymore. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she belonged. They ordered their drinks, and for a few moments, neither of them spoke. It was as if they were both taking a moment to assess each other. Emma noticed the way Liam observed the room, the way his posture was always perfect, the way his presence seemed to fill the space. He was a man used to getting attention, used to being in control. She could tell that much. But she wasn't intimidated. Not anymore. "So, how's life treating you, Emma?" Liam asked, breaking the silence. Same old," she said with a shrug. "Work's fine. You know how it is." He leaned forward slightly, his interest piqued. "And what about your dreams? What do you want to do when you're not working at the diner?" The question took her by surprise. No one had ever asked her that before. She had dreams, sure. Big ones, even. But she didn't talk about them. Not with anyone. "I want to open my own art studio," she said, her voice quieter now, almost as if she were speaking to herself. "That's what I've always wanted. But it's hard. I can't afford it." Liam's expression softened, and for the first time, Emma saw a glimmer of something real in his eyes. "Why don't you pursue it?" he asked gently. "You're talented. I can tell. I can help, if you want." Emma blinked, caught off guard by his words. She had no idea what he meant by that, but something in his tone made her believe he was serious. "Help?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "How could you help me?" Liam leaned back in his chair, considering her question. "I know people," he said slowly. "People who can make things happen. I can introduce you to them." Emma shook her head, still unsure. "I don't know. This feels like a bad idea. I'm just a waitress, Liam." "No," he said firmly. "You're more than that." There was a long pause as she absorbed his words. It felt like a turning point, like something big was about to happen. She didn't know what exactly, but for the first time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, her dreams weren't as out of reach as she had always believed. The days that followed were a blur of excitement and uncertainty for Emma. Liam's offer lingered in her mind, a tempting promise of a chance she never thought she would have. She kept telling herself that it was just a coffee, just a conversation, but deep down, she knew it was something more. She found herself looking at her sketchbooks more often, imagining what it would be like to finally have her own studio. Could she really make it happen? Could she trust this man, this stranger she had met by accident? She tried to push those thoughts away, focusing on her job at the diner. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. But every time she walked past the small art galleries in the city or saw a beautiful painting in a cafe, her heart ached. She wanted more. She deserved more. A week later, Liam called again. It wasn't expected, but she wasn't entirely surprised. He invited her to a gallery opening. "I know you love art," he said over the phone. "I think this could be a great opportunity for you." The words hung in the air, too tempting to ignore. She had never been to a gallery opening before, let alone one that was hosted by someone like Liam. "What do you think?" he asked, as if he could sense her hesitation. She didn't know what to say at first. Was this a part of his plan? Was he just trying to make a connection with her? Or was this something bigger? "Okay," she said finally, her voice steady. "I'll go." "Great," Liam replied, his tone warm. "I'll send you the details. Wear something nice." The day of the opening, Emma spent hours staring at her closet, unsure of what to wear. She didn't have a lot of fancy clothes, just a few things she had picked up on sale. But she couldn't show up in something cheap, not when she was going to be around so many important people. Eventually, she found a dress that was simple but elegant, and she hoped it would be enough. When she arrived at the gallery, her nerves hit her all at once. The building was grand, the kind of place where the art on the walls seemed to glow under the soft lighting. She stepped inside, feeling out of place, but she reminded herself that she deserved to be there. She found Liam almost immediately. He was talking to a group of people, his usual composed self, but when he saw her, his face lit up with a genuine smile. "Emma, you made it," he said, walking toward her. "You look great." She smiled back, feeling a little shy but also proud of herself for stepping out of her comfort zone. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft. "This place is incredible." Liam nodded, his eyes scanning the room. "It is," he agreed. "But I think you'll find your own place among all this one day." The words seemed to hang in the air for a moment, and Emma felt her heart flutter. "What do you mean?" she asked, curiosity piqued. Liam looked at her, his expression serious for a moment. "I'm offering you more than just a chance to meet some people tonight," he said, his voice lower now, as if he was sharing something personal. "I'm offering you a way to make your dreams happen. This is just the beginning." Emma's mind raced. She hadn't expected this kind of conversation at a gallery opening. "Liam, I don't know what to say," she whispered. "I've never had someone believe in me like this before." He reached out, touching her arm lightly. "You don't have to say anything. Just know that the opportunity is there. It's up to you to take it." They talked for a while longer, and Emma found herself relaxing in his company, enjoying the evening more than she had expected. The gallery was full of wealthy patrons, influential figures, and art lovers. Emma felt like a fish out of water, but she was determined to soak in every moment. Liam introduced her to a few people, all of them kind and supportive. As the night wore on, Emma couldn't help but wonder, could she really make her dreams come true? Was this the break she had been waiting for? It wasn't until much later that evening, when the gallery began to empty out, that Liam took her aside again. "I know it's a lot to process," he said, his voice soft, "but I wanted to give you this." He handed her a small envelope. "What is this?" she asked, puzzled. "Open it," he urged. Inside, she found a business card with the name of a prominent art curator and an address for a space she recognized, a building that had been empty for years. "I've arranged a meeting for you," Liam said quietly. "If you want it, it's yours. No strings attached. Just your chance." Emma's hands shook as she looked at the card, her heart racing. This was it, the opportunity she had always dreamed of. It was more than just a chance to create art. It was her chance to create a new life. She looked up at Liam, her voice trembling. "Thank you," she whispered. This means everything to me." Liam smiled, his eyes softening. "You don't need to thank me. You're the one who made it happen. I'm just here to help you take the next step." Emma stood in front of the empty building the next morning, the business card Liam had given her clutched tightly in her hand. Her heart raced as she stared at the large, weathered door, the windows dark and uninviting. She had never been inside this part of town before. It felt intimidating, like the kind of place where dreams either came to life or shattered into pieces. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open, the sound of the hinges creaking in the quiet air. Inside, the space was vast and echoing, the floor covered in dust and the walls adorned with peeling paint. But as she stepped further in, her eyes widened. This place had potential. It was more than just an empty building. It was a blank canvas, ready to be transformed into something beautiful. She could already see the gallery she had always dreamed of, bright, colorful, and filled with the work of talented artists. But it would take a lot of work. Liam's words echoed in her mind. If you want it, it's yours. No strings attached. But could she really do it? Could she turn this rundown place into a thriving art studio? Her mind raced with questions, and for a moment, she felt like running away. It seemed impossible. But then, she remembered her dream, the one that had always seemed so far out of reach. This was the moment. She couldn't back down now. With determination, Emma began to walk through the space, her footsteps echoing in the silence. She could already envision the layout of the gallery, the bright white walls showcasing vibrant paintings, sculptures, and sketches. She could see herself working in the back, creating her own pieces and building a community of artists who shared her passion. But first, she had to make this place livable. The building needed a lot of work, and she didn't have the funds to do it alone. But she wasn't about to give up. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, research, and planning. Emma reached out to contractors, gathered quotes, and started brainstorming ideas for the space. It wasn't easy. There were countless obstacles, from the cost of materials to the challenges of getting permits. But she was determined. Slowly, things began to fall into place. She found a small team of workers who were willing to help her with the renovations at a discounted rate. They worked hard, day and night, scraping, painting, and building the space that Emma had always dreamed of. As the weeks went by, the gallery started to take shape. The walls were repainted, the floors were polished, and the space was slowly transformed from a rundown building into a bright, welcoming art studio. Emma couldn't believe it when she saw it all coming together. She had done it. She had created something from nothing, and it felt like a dream come true. But there was still one more thing she had to do. Liam had told her that this opportunity was hers if she wanted it. But now, as the gallery was nearing completion, Emma realized that she needed to take the next step. She needed to open it. She needed to put herself out there and take the risk. The opening night of the gallery was approaching, and Emma was nervous. She had invited a few friends, some local artists, and a few of Liam's connections. But deep down, she wasn't sure if anyone would show up. What if they didn't like her work? What if they didn't think she was good enough? As the day of the opening drew closer, Emma couldn't shake her fear. She had spent so many years doubting herself, thinking that she wasn't worthy of success. But now, with everything she had worked for right in front of her, she realized she had to stop being afraid. She had to trust herself. The night of the grand opening, Emma stood in front of the gallery, her hands shaking as she looked at the crowd that had gathered outside. She could see Liam in the distance, talking to a few guests, but for the first time, she didn't feel intimidated. She had worked hard for this moment, and now it was time to shine. As she walked inside, her heart swelled with pride. The walls were filled with her work, and the space was alive with energy. People were laughing, talking, and admiring the art. Emma took a deep breath and stepped forward, greeting the guests with a smile. The night was a success. The gallery was filled with people who appreciated her work, and more importantly, they appreciated her. By the end of the evening, Emma felt like she had finally found her place. She was no longer just a waitress in a diner. She was an artist, a business owner, and someone who had the courage to follow her dreams. As the night wound down, Liam came over to congratulate her. "I knew you could do it," he said, his eyes filled with pride. Emma smiled at him, her heart full. "Thank you," she said softly. "You were right. This was just the beginning." The weeks following the grand opening of Emma's gallery felt like a dream she never wanted to wake up from. Her hard work had finally paid off, and the response from the community was better than she ever expected. Her gallery was now a hub for local artists, a place where creativity thrived, and her work was being admired. But as successful as the opening had been, there was still something that lingered in her heart. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was living in Liam's world, not her own. Every time he walked into her gallery, with his confident strides and sharp business sense, she felt a little out of place. She knew he had helped her, but she wasn't sure how much of this success was truly hers. It wasn't long before Liam suggested they collaborate on a charity event, a fundraiser to benefit local artists and the arts community. "We'll raise awareness for your gallery, and in the process, you'll get the chance to showcase more of your work," he said one evening, after a long day of meetings. Emma wasn't sure what to think. The idea was tempting, but but she had always prided herself on doing things on her own. She didn't want to rely on Liam any more than she already had. But the more she thought about it, the more it seemed like a golden opportunity. She could use the exposure, and the cause was one she believed in deeply. Okay, she agreed reluctantly. Let's do it. They spent the next few weeks organizing the event, reaching out to sponsors, and coordinating with other artists. Emma found herself more involved in the process than she had expected. Liam's connections made things happen quickly, and his expertise in organizing events was undeniable. But as the event drew closer, Emma began to feel a sense of unease. She hadn't realized how much she had grown accustomed to Liam's influence in her life. The night of the charity event arrived, and the gallery was buzzing with energy. The room was filled with familiar faces, as well as some new ones, all gathered to support the arts. Emma couldn't help but smile as she looked around at the people who had come to see her work, to see her dreams come to life. But even in the midst of the excitement, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in her chest. She stood by one of her paintings, trying to engage with the guests, but her mind kept drifting back to Liam. He was the one who had made this event possible. He was the one who had helped her get to this point. Was it still her success, or was it his? As the night wore on, Liam found his way over to her, his usual confident demeanor in full force. "You've done well," he said, offering her a warm smile. "The event's a success. I knew you had it in you." Emma forced a smile, though a part of her still felt conflicted. "Thanks," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I couldn't have done it without you." Liam's eyes softened, a rare moment of vulnerability flashing across his face. "You could have. You've always had it in you, Emma. I just helped you see it." The words hit her harder than she expected. For the first time, she realized that while Liam had been a catalyst for change in her life, it was ultimately her own hard work that had made everything come together. She wasn't living in his world, she was building her own. The rest of the evening passed in a blur, and by the time the event was winding down, Emma was feeling something she hadn't expected: pride. She had done it. On her own terms. As the last of the guests left, Liam approached her once more. "You should be proud," he said, his voice genuine. "This is your moment, Emma. You've earned it." She smiled, feeling the weight of his words. "Thank you," she said, her voice full of gratitude. "But I think I've earned it on my own." Liam gave her a thoughtful look, and for a moment, they simply stood there, the sounds of the event fading into the background. There was no more doubt in her mind. She had found her place in the world, and it wasn't as Liam's protégé. It was as Emma Richards, the artist, the businesswoman, and the dreamer. That night, as she locked up the gallery and turned off the lights, she stood in the center of the space, taking it all in. It was hers, and for the first time, she truly felt like she belonged. Weeks passed, and Emma found herself growing into the role of businesswoman and artist more than she ever thought possible. Her gallery was thriving, drawing in more visitors each day, and her name was becoming synonymous with fresh, innovative art in the city. But as much as she had achieved, there was still something in the back of her mind, a nagging feeling she couldn't shake. Liam. Their friendship had grown stronger over the months, and he had been there for her through every step of the way, offering advice and connections that had helped her succeed. But with every new milestone, Emma couldn't help but feel like there was an invisible thread between them, something she couldn't quite define. She knew she had come a long way on her own, but Liam had been a constant presence. She had asked for his help, but at times, it felt as though he was still guiding her, making decisions on her behalf, even when she didn't ask. She wasn't sure if it was just his personality or if he still saw her as the girl who needed saving. She tried to push those thoughts aside, focusing instead on her work and the artists who now looked up to her. But there was one thing she couldn't ignore: her growing feelings for him. It wasn't just gratitude or friendship anymore. It was something deeper, something more complicated. She tried to bury it, telling herself that it was just a phase, but every time he smiled at her or offered encouragement, it tugged at her heart. One evening, after a long day of meetings and gallery events, Liam called her. "Hey, Emma." His voice was warm as always. "I was thinking of heading out for dinner, just the two of us. You've been working nonstop lately, and I think it's time we catch up, outside of business." His words caught her off guard. She hadn't realized how much she had missed their casual conversations, the ones before everything had become so complicated. "Yeah, that sounds great," she said, her voice a little too eager. I could use a break. They agreed to meet at a quiet restaurant near the gallery, one that Emma had always enjoyed but hadn't visited in a while. When she arrived, Liam was already waiting, dressed casually but still with that air of effortless charm. She smiled at him as she sat down, and for a moment, it felt like things were back to how they had been before everything changed. As they ordered their meals, they fell into easy conversation, talking about everything and nothing. Liam asked about the latest projects she had been working on, and Emma found herself sharing her ideas more openly than she had in months. It felt like the old days, before the pressure of running a gallery and the weight of her growing success had settled on her shoulders. You know, Liam said, leaning back in his chair, I've been really impressed with everything you've accomplished. You've gone from someone who wasn't sure if they'd make it, to someone who owns one of the most talked-about galleries in the city. That takes guts. Emma felt a rush of pride at his words. Thanks, she said, her smile genuine. It hasn't been easy, but I'm doing it. Finally, there was a pause, a moment of silence between them. Then, Liam's expression softened, and he leaned forward, his tone quieter. I'm proud of you, Emma, and I think you know that I've always wanted what's best for you. His words felt heavy, and Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected the conversation to turn this way, and it made her realize just how much she had been avoiding the truth. I know, she whispered, her eyes meeting his. I know you've helped me so much, Liam, but I think I'm finally figuring things out on my own. He gave her a small smile, but his eyes were thoughtful. I don't doubt that, Emma. I never did. The conversation shifted after that, the weight of his words lingering between them. As dinner ended and they stepped outside into the cool night, Emma felt a sense of calm wash over her. She had always known that Liam cared about her, but hearing him say it aloud made her realize something else. She didn't need him to fix her life anymore. She had done it on her own. That night, as she lay in bed, Emma's thoughts raced. She had always viewed her relationship with Liam through a lens of gratitude and dependence, but now, it was different. She was starting to see him in a new light, and she realized that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the one who needed to take care of her anymore. As the days went on, Emma continued to focus on her gallery, her work, and her future. But with every passing moment, the bond she shared with Liam became more complex. It was no longer about needing him to save her. It was about something deeper, something that had been growing beneath the surface, something that neither of them had acknowledged yet. And she wasn't sure if she was ready to face it. But one thing was certain, her journey was far from over. And this time, it was her decision to make the next move. The days after that dinner with Liam were filled with a quiet sense of realization for Emma. She had always been afraid of stepping out of her comfort zone, of making decisions without knowing what the outcome would be. But now it was different. She had taken the plunge, opened her gallery, and turned it into a success. She had built something from the ground up, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like she truly belonged. But as much as she had grown, there was still a part of her that held back. That part was Liam. Every time he came around, his presence felt both comforting and unsettling. He had been there for her in ways no one else had, and she couldn't deny that his influence had shaped her in more ways than one. But the more time they spent together, the more Emma realized she had to face the truth. She couldn't keep relying on him to fill the gaps in her life. As much as she valued his support, she needed to make decisions on her own, even if that meant facing the unknown. One evening, as the gallery began to wind down and the last visitors trickled out, Liam approached her once again. This time, there was a certain heaviness in his gaze, something she hadn't seen before. Emma, he began, his voice quieter than usual, I've been thinking a lot about everything lately. Emma froze, unsure of where the conversation was headed. What do you mean? She asked, her voice steady but curious. Liam hesitated, as though weighing his words. I know I've always been there for you, he said slowly, and I'll always be there. But I think it's time for you to start making decisions on your own, without feeling like you need my approval or help every step of the way. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Was this his way of letting her go? Of pushing her out of his shadow? She didn't know what to say. For so long, she had relied on his guidance, his advice. But now, hearing him say this, she felt a wave of both fear and freedom wash over her. I've been thinking the same thing, she finally said, her voice almost a whisper. I've built this gallery on my own, and I've done it without you holding my hand every step of the way. Liam nodded, his expression softening. I know. And that's why I'm proud of you, Emma. You've come so far. There was a brief pause, and then Liam looked directly into her eyes, his gaze intense. But I think you're ready for more than what you've allowed yourself to believe. You're ready to take the next step, Emma. Whether or not I'm here to help you. Emma felt a rush of emotions flood her chest, gratitude, admiration, and a deep sense of clarity. She had been so focused on proving herself, on making her own way, that she hadn't truly stopped to think about what that next step meant. She had been afraid of stepping into a future that might be uncertain, one without the safety net of Liam's constant presence. But now she understood. The next step wasn't just about business or success. It was about embracing her independence, about no longer being tethered to the past. It was about trusting herself to make the choices that would shape her future. She looked at Liam, her heart pounding in her chest. I think you're right, she said, her voice steady and filled with newfound confidence. It's time for me to make those decisions, on my own. Liam smiled at her, a look of pride and relief crossing his face. I knew you could do it, Emma. I always knew. The conversation shifted after that, and the air between them lightened. There were no more unspoken tensions, no more lingering doubts. They both knew what needed to be done. For Emma, it was a turning point. She wasn't the same person she had been when she first met Liam. She had grown, and now, she was ready to take on the world, on her own terms. A few days later, Emma made a decision. She had been offered a partnership with a larger gallery, one that could offer her the exposure and resources to take her work to new heights. But after careful consideration, she decided to turn it down. She wasn't ready to compromise her independence just yet. She had built something of her own, something that meant more to her than any partnership could offer. She had learned that her success wasn't about the connections she had, but about the strength she had found within herself. The decision wasn't easy, but it felt right. And for the first time, Emma was confident that she was in control of her own future. As she stood in the gallery that evening, looking at the paintings on the walls, she realized that this was her space, her creation. No one else could take that away from her. And that was the freedom she had been searching for all along. As the weeks passed, Emma's confidence continued to grow. Her decision to remain independent in her gallery was beginning to pay off. More visitors came through her doors every day, and her reputation as a rising star in the art world was spreading. She was no longer the uncertain woman who had first opened the gallery. She had become someone who trusted herself and her instincts. However, despite her success, Emma still couldn't shake the tension that lingered whenever Liam was around. They had grown close over the months, but the relationship between them was complicated. She had started to realize that it wasn't just about business or friendship anymore. She had developed feelings for him, feelings she wasn't sure how to handle. Liam had always been supportive, but there was a distance between them that neither of them addressed. He had made it clear that he respected her independence, but Emma couldn't ignore the fact that he had been a constant presence in her life since she opened the gallery. The more she thought about it, the more she realized she had to make a choice. If she was going to take control of her future, she needed to understand where she stood with him. Was this just a mentor-mentee relationship, or was there something more? One evening, after a particularly successful exhibition at the gallery, Emma found herself staring at the walls, feeling the weight of everything she had accomplished. She was alone in the gallery, the lights dimmed, the only sound being the soft hum of the city outside. As she was about to lock up for the night, she heard the sound of footsteps behind her. She turned to find Liam standing in the doorway, his usual confident demeanor softened by the quiet atmosphere. I didn't mean to intrude, he said, his voice gentle. I just wanted to check in. The exhibition was a success, wasn't it? Emma nodded, feeling a sense of pride swell in her chest. Yes, it went really well. I'm grateful for everything. You should be, Liam replied, stepping closer. You've worked hard to get here. And it's not just about the art. It's about everything you've built. Emma looked at him, feeling a rush of emotion. I know I've come a long way, but sometimes I feel like I owe it all to you. You've been there for me when no one else was. Liam's expression softened, and for the first time in a long while, there was no business agenda in his gaze. It was just him, looking at her, as if seeing her for who she truly was. You don't owe me anything, Emma, he said quietly. You've done all this on your own. You've worked harder than anyone I know. I'm just glad I could help. The sincerity in his words hit her harder than she expected. Emma's heart fluttered, but she wasn't sure if it was from the praise or from something else. There was something about the way he looked at her, something that made her feel vulnerable and seen in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. Without thinking, she stepped forward, the space between them closing. "Liam," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." He nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "Of course. What is it? Where do we stand?" Emma asked, her words hanging in the air. "I don't know what this is anymore. Our relationship, I mean. Is this just business? Or is there something more? Because I can't keep pretending like there's not a part of me that wants more." For a moment, Liam didn't say anything. He just stood there, looking at her, as if contemplating her words. Emma's heart pounded in her chest. She hadn't meant to put him on the spot like this, but the uncertainty was eating her alive. She needed to know where she stood. Finally, Liam spoke, his voice low and measured. "I've always cared about you, Emma. More than you know. But I didn't want to complicate things, especially when you were just starting out. I didn't want you to feel like you owed me anything or that you were doing this because of me. I wanted you to stand on your own 2 feet. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The words she had been waiting to hear, but somehow, they still felt too heavy. "So what does that mean for us now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam stepped closer, his gaze softening. "It means that I'm here, Emma, for whatever you need. But I don't want to be the one pulling the strings anymore. I want you to make the decisions, just like you've been doing. I want you to take control of your life, your career, and whatever else you want. And if that means me being in your life, I'll be here. But only if that's what you want." Emma's heart swelled, and for the first time, she realized that the independence she had fought so hard for didn't have to come at the cost of her feelings. She didn't have to choose between her dreams and her heart. She could have both. She looked at Liam, her eyes full of emotion. "I want you in my life, Liam. But I need to know that we're both in this together. No more doubt, no more distance." Liam smiled, the warmth in his eyes telling her everything she needed to know. "Then we'll do it together, Emma. No more pretending." The weight that had been hanging over her for so long lifted, and for the first time, Emma felt truly free. She had built her life, her career, and now, with Liam by her side, she was ready to build something even more beautiful, a future they could share. As the months went by, Emma and Liam's relationship blossomed into something neither of them had expected. It wasn't just about business or art anymore. It was about trust, mutual respect, and the kind of partnership that allowed both of them to grow. Emma had built her gallery into something truly special, but now, with Liam by her side, she felt a new sense of purpose. They made decisions together, laughed together, and, most importantly, supported each other in ways they had never experienced before. Emma's gallery continued to thrive, but now it felt like more than just a space for art. It was a place where people came to connect, to be inspired, and to feel a sense of belonging. Her vision had finally come to life, and she was proud of everything she had accomplished. But even more than the gallery's success, Emma cherished the relationship she had with Liam. It wasn't about him helping her anymore. It wasn't about her needing him to succeed. It was about 2 people who genuinely cared for each other, building something beautiful together. One evening, after closing up the gallery, Emma and Liam found themselves sitting on the rooftop of the building, overlooking the city. The lights below twinkled like stars, and the soft hum of the city was a reminder of how far they had come. Emma looked over at Liam, a smile playing at the corners of her lips. "I never imagined I'd be here," she said, her voice soft but full of meaning. "I never thought this would be my life. Owning a gallery, surrounded by people who believe in what I do." Liam smiled back, his eyes softening. "I told you from the beginning that you had it in you, Emma. You just had to believe in yourself." Emma nodded, her heart swelling with emotion. "And I did. I think I finally do." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just enjoying the view and the quiet company of one another. Emma had never felt more at peace with where she was in life. She had built her dreams from the ground up, and she had done it on her own terms. But now, she realized, she wasn't alone anymore. Liam had become a part of that dream, and she couldn't imagine it without him. "You know," Liam said after a long pause, breaking the silence, "I've been thinking a lot about where we're headed. About the future." Emma turned to him, her curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" I think we've built something really great together," he said, his voice serious but filled with warmth. but I want to keep building it. I want to build a future with you. Emma's heart skipped a beat, and she looked at him, searching his face for any hint of uncertainty. But there was none. Liam, she said, her voice trembling slightly. What are you saying? He reached for her hand, holding it gently in his. I'm saying that I want you in my life, Emma. Not just for the gallery, but for everything. I want to be by your side, through all the ups and downs. I'm ready for more, if you are. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had known, deep down, that this was the moment when everything changed. She had never allowed herself to fully believe in a future like this, not after everything she had been through. But now, with Liam's words filling the air between them, she knew this was real. She had found something she didn't even know she was looking for. I'm ready, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I've never been more ready. Liam's face broke into a smile, and he leaned in, brushing a soft kiss across her forehead. I love you, Emma. The words hung in the air, and Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was everything she had been waiting for, everything she had been afraid to admit to herself. She had built her life on her own, but now, she knew that this was the next step. This was the future she wanted. I love you too, she said softly, her heart full. And in that moment, under the stars and the city lights, they both knew that the journey they had started was just the beginning. The gallery, their work, their love, it was all a reflection of the strength they had found in each other. It wasn't about who had helped whom. It was about building something lasting, together. As they sat there, hand in hand, Emma felt the final pieces of her dream falling into place. She had found her place in the world, and it was exactly where she was meant to be. With Liam by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that together, they could build anything. And as the city continued to hum around them, Emma felt, for the first time in her life, that she was truly home. This touching story follows the journey of Emma, a young woman who transforms her life and builds her dream gallery from the ground up. Throughout her journey, she faces the challenges of independence, self-doubt, and the pressure of success. With the help of Liam, a supportive and influential figure in her life, Emma discovers her inner strength and learns to trust herself. As the story unfolds, Emma grapples with the complexities of her relationship with Liam, realizing that her success is no longer about his guidance, but about her own determination. This touching story highlights the importance of believing in yourself, embracing opportunities, and taking risks to achieve your dreams. As Emma's relationship with Liam deepens, she learns that love and partnership can coexist with personal growth and independence. The touching story reaches its emotional peak as Emma decides to take control of her future, not just in business, but in her personal life. With Liam by her side, they face the future together, knowing that their journey is just beginning. This touching story is a powerful reminder that no matter how difficult the road may seem, the strength to succeed and build a fulfilling life is within us all.